Environmental heroes.
Presidents George Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev in Finland for a summit about the Persian Gulf crisis. But Saddam Hussein issues a defiant statement saying any attempt to take control of Kuwait from his troops would be futile.
This is a special edition of NBC Nightly News. Tonight with Tom Brokaw in Helsinki, Finland, and Faith Daniels reporting from New York.
Good evening from Helsinki, where Presidents Bush and Gorbachev are getting a night's rest before their first meeting tomorrow morning on how best to deal with Saddam Hussein and Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. President Bush sees this summit as a major step toward a new world order, old rivals working together on common problems. NBC's White House correspondent John Cochran traveled here with the president. John, what does George Bush want from Mikhail Gorbachev?
Tom, the president wants to help Gorbachev with his staggering economic problems, although there's not much the U.S. can really do to help. In the Gulf crisis, Bush wants Gorbachev's help, not Soviet troops, but any influence Gorbachev can bring to bear on his one-time ally, Saddam Hussein. President Bush arrived in Finland after his first transatlantic flight in the new Air Force One. The president said much else is also new about this summit, a summit where the superpowers are united against an outlaw.
The international response to Iraq's invasion proves how much has changed. Here in Helsinki, President Gorbachev and I meet, hopefully to strengthen our common approach to this unjustifiable act of aggression. Much is at stake, and there is much the world stands to gain if we succeed.
The Soviets say they might be willing to send soldiers as part of a UN peacekeeping force which would include Soviet generals. But U.S. officials privately are cool to the idea. In Saudi Arabia, American generals think the multinational force is getting along just fine without Soviet troops. U.S. officials are concerned that they would have to share sensitive intelligence information if Moscow joined the team. Even more important, President Bush's aides do not want the Soviets to entrench themselves as movers and shakers in the Mideast. The U.S. hopes that after the present crisis is over, Washington and not Moscow will be the most influential outsider in the Mideast. On the flight to Helsinki, Bush said he would not ask Gorbachev for soldiers.
I have no plans to do that, but I will be talking about a wide array of cooperative arrangements.
At the American embassy in Helsinki, Soviet forces were the furthest thing from Bush's mind.
Good luck, sir.
Instead, the president was talking up the might of the U.S. Air Force in the Arabian desert.
A lot of planes there now, a lot of knowledge, and I think it guarantees that Saddam Hussein will not do anything reckless. He'd be stupid if he did.
Right. Although it is the Gulf crisis that gives tomorrow's summit its edge and sense of urgency, White House aides tell NBC News that Bush and Gorbachev may also come closer to agreement on reducing conventional or non-nuclear forces in Europe. And that would be big and welcome news here in Europe. Tom?
Tonight, the strongest vote of confidence yet from the administration that the political and economic squeeze on Saddam Hussein is working.
I think for the moment that's probably true, yes. Yes. In other words, we have put together a strategy which has a good chance of succeeding without the use of military force.
For his part, Gorbachev comes here to work on a grave international crisis while leaving behind in the Soviet Union an equally grave economic crisis. NBC's Moscow correspondent Bob Abernathy tells us tonight Gorbachev hopes this meeting may provide some solutions to both problems. Bob?
Tom, President Gorbachev feels just as strongly as President Bush that the Gulf crisis, the first of the post-Cold War era, gives the U.S. and the Soviet Union a chance to work together. But the Soviets are concerned that the U.S. emphasis may be too much on a military solution.
When he arrived here, Gorbachev